Every symptom that you struggle with, whether it's mood changes and weight gain, fatigue, skin changes, gut changes, can all be traced back to your nutritional status. Think of nutrition as kind of like the lead domino in a chain reaction of events that affects every component of your biology and your physiology. By the end of this video, you're going to not only understand how it is that these different components of nutrition fit into your biology and biochemistry, but you're also going to be introduced to something that I like to refer to as the health systems pyramid. And what this is a way of deconstructing and prioritizing different aspects of our biology to drive ourselves to a state of health and wellness over one of sickness and disease. My name is Scott Resnick. I'm a medical doctor, and I'm making these YouTube videos to simplify complex medical topics and give you the tools that you need to take actionable, practical steps to turn around aspects of health without using conventional drugs. And today we are talking about nutrition. I alluded to something known as the health systems pyramid, and I am showing this now in this overlay. What this is the foundation of the pyramid, because when we have a good foundational complement of what our biology and physiology needs, then all of our downstream effects can run as effectively as possible. I mean, think about a car, for example. If you're trying to make your car work well and you're missing gas in the tank, air in the tires, electricity in the battery, or oil in the crankcase, your car isn't going to run as possible, and our biology and physiology works the same way. Let's start with proteins as part of the nutritional foundation of the health systems pyramid. Now, it's not that we need proteins per se. We need the amino acids that make up the proteins. Our body uses amino acids to build other proteins that we need and to make things like thyroid hormone and neurotransmitters. What's interesting is that there are some 20 different amino acids, and 9 of these are essential. So in these videos, when you hear me use the term essential, it means these are things that our body is unable to make, and we need to get it through our diet. So 9 of our amino acids are essential, and typically these are things like the branched chain amino acids, which are made to use muscles. What happens is if you've had a vegetarian or vegan diet for a number of years, you may be deficient in these essential amino acids unless you have balanced the legumes and grains, the rices and the beans, as have been done in so many cultures like the Latin cultures and the East Indian cultures. The next component of our physiology are fats, and fats are so important. And I know that in the 70s they said fat makes you fat. I can't think of anything more ridiculously wrong. Let's break down the different fats that our body needs. For starters, we need cholesterol. And I know so many doctors out there are putting people on medications to lower their cholesterol. But cholesterol, you have to understand, is a really important component for making the steroid hormones that our body uses. I mean, cortisol, aldosterone, testosterone, estrogen, DHEA, progesterone are all made from a cholesterol backbone. The next fat that is so important for our body are these membrane phospholipids. And what these are important for the structure of our body, but they also are important because they are phosphate donors. And so many of our intracellular processes require this phosphorylation step that comes from these membrane phospholipids. The third component of fats are the omega-3s and the omega-6 fats. And as you guys know, omega-3s are basically anti-inflammatory, omega-6s are pro-inflammatory, and we have to have the right balance. The problem is that so many people in developed countries are deficient in their omega-3s. They're excessive in their omega-6s from a diet which is high in meat, and this ratio is off, putting us into a greater state of inflammation as opposed to one of an anti-inflammatory state. And the last thing that's so important about fats is they're a great energy source. When we burn a gram of fat, we yield something like 9 calories. This is in contrast to 4 calories gleaned from burning a gram of protein or carbohydrate. And this makes perfect sense. I mean, if you needed to pack on energy onto your skeleton because you never knew when you were not going to be able to find food in the future, it would make sense that you'd be able to go twice as far on a gram of fat, which you're carrying around all the time, as opposed to the proteins or the carbohydrates. The next thing that's so important in this foundation of nutrition are our minerals and vitamins. And I don't want to go over all the different minerals and vitamins, but I want to clarify a few that typically cause people problems. Now, on the side of the vitamins, some of the more common vitamins that people are notoriously deficient in are things like B12 and also vitamin D. This is because we're just not getting enough sunshine. I mean, vitamin D is associated with something like 10% of the way that our DNA works. Vitamin B12 is vitally important for making energy. And there are a number of reasons that people can be deficient in these important vitamins, and I'll get to these in just a second. Now, what about minerals? Now let's talk about some of these micronutrients. We need small amounts of magnesium and zinc, selenium, iodine, and iron. We don't want to have too much or too little of all of these different nutrients. Now, when you look at just magnesium and zinc together, it turns out that these are associated with some 600 different enzymatic reactions in the body. The World Health Organization estimates that a full 25% of the planet is zinc deficient, and zinc is so important for the way that our immune system works. How about magnesium? It's estimated that 50% of the people over the age of 50 are magnesium deficient. And there are so many medications, things like the antihypertensives, the anti-diabetic drugs, birth control pills, which deplete us from vitamins B12 and B6, that could all be a factor in creating a state of nutritional deficiency. I mean, people are deficient in iodine because we're not eating enough seafood. And typically people in the Midwest of the United States can be iodine deficient because 20,000 years ago, the glaciers scoured all the topsoil that contained the iodine from the prehistoric oceans. Selenium is so important for making things like glutathione and for making thyroid hormone. The last category of nutrients are the phytonutrients. And these are chemicals like zeaxanthins and luteins and capsaicins. There's any number of different chemicals that work to help to support the way that our biology works. But unlike the proteins and the fats and the minerals and the vitamins, which are vitally important for enzymatic reactions, think of the phytonutrients as creating the scene. And if the main nutrients that I just went over form the, say the components of a symphony, the violins and the oboes and the drums. Think of the phytonutrients as kind of tuning the orchestra, creating the ambiance so that all of these nutrients work within our DNA and within our health optimally. So take a moment to consider your diet. I mean, if you're not having a diet which is high in the colored vegetables, the green leafy vegetables, you could be well deficient in some of these important phytonutrients. And the last thing I want to discuss are carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates as a whole probably deserves a whole video. And so many people are trying to avoid carbohydrates in their diet. And I would recommend avoiding the simple carbohydrates, but complex carbs are so important. Why is this? It's because our brain prefers the sugars that are taken from carbohydrates to run most efficiently. The problem is that the vast number of people in developed countries are in a state of excessive carbohydrate intake. And what this does is it drives our insulin secretion. It increases our risk of developing insulin resistance, and it causes us to put on more fat cells. And as you guys know, fat cells are like little pro-inflammatory factories. They're making all these different pro-inflammatory cytokines that drive inflammation, and ultimately inflammation is the one factor that contributes to all aging, all disease, and all symptoms. So there you have the important nutrients that make up this nutritional foundation of the health systems pyramid. When your foundation is well constructed, you can then begin to set the overlaying components, ultimately leading to the crown jewel of the health system pyramid, which is the way that our brain works and the ability to reproduce. These are the ultimate goals of the human animal in nature, trying to preserve our species. If you guys want to know where you stand on this health to disease spectrum, I've put together a really cool, really simple little at-home 5-question set that you can develop, you can take today to understand where you stand on this health to disease spectrum. Look for it in the description below. And as always, because this is YouTube, I'd ask that you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll keep on making these videos to help you to find a path to great health without using conventional drugs. If you guys want to know where you stand on this health to disease spectrum, I have built a really simple at-home 5-question set that's going to help you to self-reflect upon different components of your biology that you can measure within minutes in the privacy of your own home. Because when you know where you start with your health and wellness journey, then you can begin to know where you need to go. And as always, this is YouTube, so be sure to like and comment and subscribe, and I will see you guys in another video. Take care.